Welcome to the worst nightmare of all. Reality.
Explore the lesser-known stories of our unknown world. Join the pursuit of the paranormal with Ash and Greg.
Welcome to this week's episode of Pursuit of the Paranormal. This week we are joined by Sacha Christie from the UK, who has a fascinating story and, well, a terrifying experience that you went through. Just thank you for joining us, Sacha.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's lovely, thanks.
Yeah, really looking forward to this.
So I guess let's just jump into it. Is this back? How long ago was it when you had this first experience?
So in 1997, I was 27. I was seeing this guy, Steve. I had a little boy, Louis. He was 6. We used to go to Wales every now and again, you know, like on a cheap weekend. If you go in winter, it costs nearly nothing. You know, it's really, you get some really good deals. So
Yeah,
we kind of used to go off season. And it's nice as Wales. It's nice when it's raining as well as when it's, you know, it's sunny. I used to like going out walking in the middle of nowhere in the rain, you know, just nice and peaceful. So this particular time we'd gone with Steve's sister and their uncle John. And Danya, she had her son Joseph. And he was, I think, 4 or 5. He was younger than my son, probably, you know, by a year or so. But they were close enough in age to be able to play and have fun. And, you know, it was going to be a nice weekend, just us lot in this cottage. Now, I don't know Wales at all, so I didn't know where we were. And I wasn't aware, really, that we were even on a mountain. I just was sat in the back with the kids, you know, sat in the back of the car. So you just, I'm not paying attention to anything. I do remember some snippets of it, but like thinking, my God, it's foggy, you know, like everywhere was foggy, but it wasn't fog. We were driving through the clouds, you know, because we were that high up. But that information was lost to me in the sands of time after the event, and I wasn't really aware of it when we were there. I didn't really care. We were just going away for the weekend. So, you know, as it was February, it's pretty grim weather, you know. We had been out walking about. I don't really remember a lot of the time we were there. Steve remembers a lot more than I do about what we did while we were there other than the event, but my kind of memories just smashed to pieces, really, and all I can remember is little bits of what we did around the event, like went down to the shop, and this is like so unbelievable that when we went in the shop, which was the post office, this is how remote it was and how safe it was. The key was in the door still, you know. I was like, that's mad. Can't imagine that in Leeds. That's like, you know, wow. Anyway, so this particular night, I think it was a Saturday night, but after talking to Steve now properly about it all, I don't know really. Because I thought we'd only gone like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but he was like, no, we were there like a day longer than that, and we were supposed to be another day longer than that, but we ran away, and I'd forgotten all that. So this night, I'm upstairs. This is how it all starts for me. I'm in the bedroom, and I'm at the bed, and I'm in my bag. And I think I'm going to get a bath on, getting stuff out of my bag. And the kids are playing at the bottom of the stairs. And then John and Danya are in the living room and they're watching TV. When I came upstairs, I think Steve was washing up. So I I'm in my bag and the kids are being rowdy, and I hear Steve shouting my name, like, Sacha, come here, come and look at this. Oh, no, he didn't say come and look at this till I got downstairs. So he's shouting my name. So I run downstairs, he says, come and look at this. So I go outside with him, and we're standing at a wall, and he's like pointing off in the distance, and all I can see is like clouds. It's just dark. It's just trees and clouds. You can see stuff. It's not like completely black. And I couldn't see anything. So he's pointing, and I kind of stick my head on his arm to look down his finger to see where he's pointing, to see if I can see where he's actually, pointing, because it's just all this sky, and it's completely black, and I see this tiny little flicker, and it goes on and off. And I said to him, it's lightning. He said, it's not, watch it. So I was like, okay. So it came back on, and it went off, and then it came back on, and it went off, and it was moving away from us, like to our right. When it had after a while, you could see that it had a totally uniform pattern to it. It wasn't like little bursts of electrical activity in the clouds like I initially thought, like a little storm. It had a pattern to it. So then, in my recollection, it's moving off to the right, and then it stopped. I remember it stopping, and then I remember it looking bigger. And then I realised actually it's not bigger, it's closer. It's actually moving closer. And it moved to us in like this zigzag way, and it was so slow. Like, it must have taken like 40 minutes for it to even get to us. It was not, everything moves so quickly, and you see all these videos and everything's like supersonic. It was nothing like that at all. It was like it was drifting. And I wondered, because of the zigzag motion, why would it do that? Why is it moving like that? It acted like it just had like a stick inside it that you just got to go left, wang it right, wang it left, wang it right, to get to where you go. Like, that's just not what you'd expect from something so technological. But when we went back recently, I now know that it was actually following a valley. Like, there's a zigzag in the valley. And I did wonder if that was the case. And I've had all kinds of thoughts about gravity ball effect and all this kind of stuff, but I don't really know. It's just things that flip through your mind. But anyway, at some point, Steve's gone back in the house and got everyone outside. And this thing is coming towards us now, and it's in front of us, and it's massive. There's this undulation in the clouds, but it's light. And it's like kind of rippling through. But as it's moving, whatever it is it's moving, because of the different densities in the clouds, it's like there was like this ripple effect. So some of it kind of looked like jellyfish tentacles, but they were not like bright, stark. It was all very muted because it was all in the cloud. But it was crazy. And I remember like bits, it looking pink and yellow, and Steve remembers grey, green, whatever, not the same colours as I do. But anyway, we both remember that it was just this massive expanse of light, but there was a central part that was moving, and all this just seemed to be an effect of the light going through the clouds. And it came so that it was over to our left now. So we've moved up the garden, and it's over the field, all this like hilly field bit that's in front of the house that had sheep on it actually, and they were all like laying down. So we're all staring at this thing that's over the field. I'm stood next to a wall in front of a hedge. This hedge is like only a couple of feet high. As the hedge ends, this little wall starts. It's only a couple of feet high, like this little stone wall. And it leads to two sheds. Like, I don't know what was in one, but the first one, it had wood in it. So that was where the wood store was for the fires. And so behind me, there's like a patch of land. And then as the house ends, there's a chicken wire fence that comes across. So it separates like this path and some trees. So that's behind me, and I'm next to the wall, like kind of in these bits of, I'm blocked in by the hedge and the wall. And my little boy stood to my right. Steve is behind me to my right, and he stood on like a septic tank lid that was just sort of a few feet in front of the side of the house. So he stood on that, and he's facing this way. And we're all kind of watching this thing that's coming across, and it's drifted to be right over the top of us now. And this has taken ages. This is maybe an hour now. And it's right over us now. So I'm stood there looking at it. My son's next to us. There's this strobe that comes from behind, but I didn't see the strobe. I saw it bounce off the side of the house, the flash of it. Because everything was like blue, because this thing that was above us now, the light that was coming down from it was white, but everything it touched turned blue. And so this light was orange that bounced off the side of the house. Or, the house was like old Yorkshire stone, so it's kind of yellowy. But it looked like a bright orange strobe that just went on like that. And then I remember Steve moving towards us then. And then when my son's stood next to me, he starts tugging on my clothes, and he said, Mummy, your hand's just come through the hedge and touched my foot. It wasn't my imagination. I saw it with my eyes. And then later he said that he thought it was the hedge because it looked like sticks. So, I don't know. Anyway, I didn't look. I didn't think to look. I didn't even try and reassure him of anything. I don't think it really fully hit me what he'd said. So I turned and said to Steve, the kids are getting scared now. So he said, come on, let's take them inside. So we set off walking towards the house with this thing still bit on the floor, on the ground behind us, like just kind of like nothing really out of the ordinary was happening. It was so weird how we were all behaving, like not like you would expect. Do you know what I mean? So we all walked back down to the house. John was with Joseph, and John had put his back to it all. He was kind of bent over, and he was in the doorway of the woodshed, and he had this axe, and there was all this wood around, but he was hacking into the door frame and saying to Joseph, this is how we chop the wood. So he was kind of like obviously losing it a bit and trying to put his back between it and him and protect Joseph or whatever. I don't really know what was going on in his head, because previously he'd stood there and said it was the Aurora Borealis, and I kind of laughed and said, that's ridiculous. This is, I didn't know at the time that you could get the auroras in Wales, but apparently you can. And anyway, it was thick cloud, so you wouldn't have seen it anyway. So I kind of laughed at that. But yeah, he was obviously not in a good place with it, and he was putting Joseph's back to it as well, taking him out of the situation as much as he could. So we went into the house, and then Steve kind of just walked straight back up to the sink, and the kids went straight back to the bottom of the staircase where they were playing, and John and Danya, they went and straight into the living room to watch TV. So I'm kind of stood looking at everyone thinking, what are you doing? So I was like, F this, I'm off back outside. So I just like turned around and stomped off back up the garden. And I remember walking up the path and looking at this sphere on the left, sort of shaking my head like in disbelief, but not bothered at all, like I should have been. Then I went and stood right underneath this thing, which I was looking up at it. So it's a big central circle of light with strips of light coming out from the centre, and that they were turning. And then there was this little tiny light that was going this way, but it was, probably about 60 feet across was this whole thing that we could see. And that was now out of the cloud, but that was the only part that was out of the cloud.
How low down was?
I reckon it was probably about 150 feet in the air.
Right. Did it cover like your whole view of the sky? Was it like that big that it was just?
It was when it was coming towards us, but when it was above us, it was like the only thing that I remember looking at was just that central part of it. But that was the only bit that wasn't obscured by a cloud. I could see that clearly. There was no cloud over it. but the rest of it was still in the clouds. So I don't really remember anything out of the periphery of what I could actually see, which was big anyway. But when it was coming towards us, like Steve said in the video, it just filled the sky. But you couldn't really hear what he was saying, unfortunately, because of the sound. He said it was immense. A few times he used the words immense. But when it was over the top of us, the only bit that I can really remember and focusing on was just that central bit of light where all the white light was coming out of, but it actually was blue when it touched everything. I remember looking at Danya. She was stood on that little wall to the right, and I was looking at her, and she's got blonde hair, and she was just stood there wide-eyed. She's got big eyes, and she was just stood there, and she was just blue. It was just so bizarre because the light was white,
What kind of sound was it? Was there any sound? Because you mentioned it.
No, and I'm not saying there wasn't any external sounds. Don't really remember. We didn't feel like we were in a vacuum at the time, But it seemed to be like the normal sound. Nobody was feeling. I don't remember anything feeling like the sound wasn't right. But when I was stood underneath it by myself and looking up at it, that's when I had something run up to me. But it ran into me. And kind of ran into me and past me. But like I said before, I was next to a wall and a hedge. There was nowhere for it to go. And when we went back there recently, we got to meet the owners of the house and they let us in. Where I stood is still there, but mostly everything else has changed. The path that I ran down, that's gone. That's inside the house now. They've built extensions in every direction, pretty much. So everything's... nothing's the same. I couldn't walk where it had all happened. That one little bit was still there. And so this sphere that was on the ground was kind of just a bit bigger than me maybe, so that I could have stood up in it. And it was pulsing a grey white light. I showed a photograph of the area and I put the sphere in it, but I should have said that it didn't look like that. It didn't look like a ball bearing. It was glowing like a grey white light and all mist was coming off it and it was dark. I just don't know how to do that on I can't do images like that. So I just don't have the skill. So it was just kind of for reference, basically, that's where it was. And that's about the size it was, so when I had these footsteps and I felt like it bump into me, it was just, that was when everything in me came alive, run, and I was already running. I literally had this, it's like a pump that happens in your chest. It takes your breath away. It's so strong. I'll never forget it. Your chest has exploded or inflated and it's just sheer adrenaline. And that boom, and my body took off. And by the time my brain had caught up and said run, I was already running, but I couldn't see anything. I was actually blind. Everything was black. Until I got to the steps and I saw the steps, it was like my vision came on and then went off again and came on and went off every time I had a jump. It's like I was literally running as fast as I could. And when I got to them steps, I tried to launch myself into the house, which was, there was no way I was going to be able to leap that far, but I tried. And then when I hit the ground, I saw the ground. Then when I hit the steps in the kitchen, I saw the steps, and then my vision was back. And, the only thing that I can think of that explains that is in World War II, especially I've heard of it in World War II, when soldiers would go blind and they called it hysterical blindness. There was no physical reason for it. It was just your brain not being able to cope. I don't know if that's what it is, but I figured that's what it is. People have told me always because the aliens abducted you at that moment, and then you were, they still had the block on and you hit the ground running. And I'm like, well, I don't know any of that because I don't have any. I didn't even see anything. My son saw a hand. I didn't see it, and I never saw anything. I didn't look. Whatever it had on 2 feet, I can tell the difference between 2 and 4 feet running. You know, so that was it. Then I'd lost the plot, and I was like telling Steve to, you know, close all the curtains and shut the doors, and you know, I was really panicking. I was absolutely terrified. I had literally run for my life. This is a fight or flight thing, you know, that flight, when it happens to you, it's automatic. You don't think to do it. Your body just does it. And it's mad. And the sheer amount of adrenaline that was going through my body, I was literally trembling like you wouldn't believe. And shivering, you know, chattering jaw, the whole lot, like terror. It was unbelievable. I don't even know how we did it. We got the kids to bed. Don't even remember getting the kids to bed. I remember us being in the bedroom, and I was sat on the bed and Steve was pacing and he was looking out the window and it hadn't gone away, you know, he just shut the curtains, and I was in the middle of the bed and I didn't even dare like go to the toilet by myself. I was literally clinging onto his t-shirt if we went anywhere, and I didn't dare put my feet on the floor. For weeks afterwards, I would go anywhere when it was dark, and if I had to go in a room that was dark, I would smack the door open and hit the light switch at the same time, and couldn't go upstairs. Oh my God. It was like, whoop, game over. You know, literally just pure terror. And it takes ages to get over that.
Just a quick question. From the moment that you all came back in and you said, like, sod this, I'm going back outside, to when you came running back in, what sort of time frame were we looking, and how long did it feel to you?
Probably about 5 minutes. Yeah. Maybe 5 minutes. It wasn't long because, you know, the garden wasn't that long. It might have taken me a minute or so to get up there, and maybe stood there for a minute or so thinking, now what? You know, what's happening? What is this? You know, it's not really a series of questions. You're just like, whoa. You know, you're literally being awestruck. You don't really have coherent thought. You just, it's all this sensation, isn't it? You know, and disbelief, but I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it, and I've forgotten everything behind me. Mesmerised.
Did you get any sort of smells or anything like that? Was there
no
sort of anything that you could sort of...
Not that no, I don't think so.
No.
I want to sort of go back to the sphere, because I think we kind of glossed over the sort of sphere part of the story. So you're out in the garden on your own, you're looking up, and there's this weird central part where it's just like the weird lights and the weird... Obviously, I know it's hard to describe sort of how the lights are coming through the clouds. So when did the sphere appear? Did it just suddenly appear? How did you notice?
The thing that drew my attention to it, the thing that made me look behind, was the strobe light that came. It was from behind because it hit the wall at the side of the house, but because it was, you know, to my right, and it was like a really bright series of flashes. I turned to look, and obviously it's just the house and Steve, so I looked directly behind me, and there it was. So I said, oh, look, there's another one. And everyone kind of turned and looked at it and were like, oh, yeah. And then focused straight back on the one in the sky. Like, it's just bizarre that we didn't... I can't understand our behaviour. This is the one thing that really freaks both of us out. You know, when we talk about it, it's our behaviour. Like, how could you forget that? You know what I mean? How could you instantly and just not be bothered or realise what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, the situation that was going on around us, it wasn't sinking in. This is the real situation. It was, you know, it's just too weird. It's too bizarre to actually, I don't know.
Yeah, so obviously this is back in 1997.
Yeah.
And I know that you were recently on the front page of a tabloid newspaper in the UK last month, or a couple of weeks ago, actually, from when we're...
What the hell happened there?
Yeah, so how did that come about?
Because Phil Mantle said to me, I have never read anything so moving as my blog that I wrote about our night that happened. Can I include it in my book about UFO landings? So I said, yeah, okay, because Phil was the first person that I told when I went on a forum in 2005, then we met, then I ended up writing for UFO Data magazine, which he was part of with Russ Callahan, you know. So it felt like it had all come full circle. So I was like, yeah, okay, put it in the book. Then he says, would you be up for doing, like a bit of promotion for it? And I was like, yeah, cool, no problem. So he was like, well, the press might be interested in running a story about the book. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'll do that. Just about my recollections, obviously. So to tell them what had happened that night, what was in the book. And I was like, yeah, cool, that sound. So they rang, I spoke to them, and they said, have you had any more sightings or anything like that? And I said, well, yeah, I had one like when I was about 7, and then one about when I was about 13. And, like what a few other, but they were just kind of little things, nothing really major league. And, obviously I'd mentioned that I was literally terrified, and that it was the whales thing, so that we all had PTSD from it. So they said, how many UFO sightings do you think you've had? And I said, I think probably from 1977, maybe about 9. So that developed into, I'm too terrified to leave the house because I'm afraid I'll get abducted. Well, I never even mentioned abductions. In fact, I refused to talk about abductions or aliens or anything. It was strictly about the UFO sighting in Wales because it was about Phil's book, and then a few periphery questions, like how did you get into the subject or whatever? Were you interested in it before? Well, yeah, I had a passing interest because I'd seen some stuff anyway, but I was that young. I just kind of accepted it as normal and didn't really think anything of it because I didn't really think about it, So that turned into, and the first draft was, this granny is scared to leave the house. I was like, what? No, that's not what I said. I said that some days the sky feels very big and I feel very small. That's what I said. Do you know what I mean? Like, I check the sky when I go out. I do. Every time I go out, I have a quick look. I don't know why it is. It's just like a safety check, I guess. Right? So they turned that all into, like, I am this, like stupid old granny who don't know what she's looking at. They even said that I'd said, I don't understand why it's only me that sees them and none of my family don't. And I was like, how is that even possible when we're talking about a group UFO sighting? Do you know what I mean? I never said that. I never talked about my family. I refuse to talk about my family. I refuse to talk about aliens. I refuse to talk about abductions. I never even said that I'd been abducted. Nothing. And they put all that thing. I was like, when I wrote to her, the woman who wrote it, and I said, God, did you have to go to university to learn how to write like that? That is utter garbage.
It's a bit more sensational, though, isn't it? That's the problem. Yeah.
So when you say, it's like 9 sightings from 1977, do you know what I mean? It's really not that exciting, especially when one was like a 4-second acorn looking thing in the sky, then maybe a couple of minutes of watching a little tiny white light zip about, then a little white light disappearing over the top of my friend's house. This is not exciting stuff. This is just like little tiny light stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, honest to God. So, yeah, they managed to twist that entire thing that I've just told you into that pile of garbage. That is skill. That is really amazing.
It's tabloid journalism.
Wow.
Well, journalism.
Told her everything that I've told you, and that is what she made of it. So that's special. That is.
So what do you think you saw? What do you think it is? Do you think it was like a solid object? Like, do you think it was like a a propelled object, or do you think it itself was the thing, rather than, for want of a better phrase, being like controlled by something else? Do you think it was intelligently controlling
I think
itself?
it was a vehicle of some sort. It was a structured craft
Yeah.
that was using the clouds to hide within. I saw part of it. It was a solid, it was nothing ethereal. It was not made of light. It wasn't alive. It was a machine of some sort. And the spear on the ground appeared, well, it was solid. And I don't know how, I don't know what it was made of, because it actually emitted light. The whole thing emitted light, pulsing really slowly on and off, like every, couple of seconds, and all mist coming off the surface of it. So, I can't really tell you if that was metallic or anything, because it was glowing.
So you go back into the house after having a sort of solo experience. With obviously you're terrified. You managed to blindly get your way back into the
Yeah.
house. You say you put the kids to bed, sort of settle them down. What happens next? Because I know you said you left the holiday cottage early. So was that because of what happened to you?
Okay, so somehow we were asleep. We went to sleep. The next day it was very tense. I don't remember all of it. I remember we decided to go and have a look to see if we could see anywhere or anything that could explain what had gone on. We just wanted to go get a layout of the land, just, try and find an explanation. So I remember being in the kitchen and making some sandwiches. And Daniel was stood behind me and she was screaming her head off at me. I don't know what she was saying. I can't remember. I just turned around and said, I think you better shut up, Danya. She went outside and started screaming at me through the window instead. John was bitching and being horrible. It was just awful. So they agreed that they would go take the kids out, and then me and Steve would go for a walk, and we would go and, just go our separate ways. But we would go and look and see if we could find anything. So we went off walking, and we went up and around and opposite the house where we were, up on another hill, because this is all little bits of hill in the valleys. So we got up this hill and this field, and there's this little hillock with a tree on it, and we're stood on this and looking out, and we're looking all around and looking for we even brought up a nightclub with lasers on the roof, which is just so daft, but we were clutching at straws, you know what I mean? So we were stood on this hill looking out, and there's just nothing at all for miles, just trees and a village, and then I felt something rubbing my leg, and I looked down, and there was this ginger cat rubbing itself on me, and I was just like, right, got to go right now. My mind is broken already. We are in the middle of nowhere. Where the hell has this cat come from? So we had to get out of there. So we went walking back. There was just nothing around. And then more arguing. I remember sitting outside crying. And I remember Steve saying, right, we're not staying. This is just doesn't feel safe. It's not right. So he made a phone call and he booked some coach tickets from Wrexham coach station back to Leeds. He then booked a taxi to meet us at 5:00 in the morning down in the village. We didn't want the car coming up where we were, so we all walked down. We literally snuck out of the house about 4:30 in the morning. I don't even know if he left a note or anything. I didn't care. I just wanted to get out of there. It was horrific. I just did not feel safe. I felt absolutely wrecked from the adrenaline. I was, from the fear. And so, yeah, we got in the cab and we went off and we got on a coach and came back to Leeds. And, after that, like I say, I was terrified of everything, dark rooms, dark staircases. slowly going mental. Me and Steve split up. We all just, Daniel moved to Spain, and then Steve moved to Spain. So when I kind of, like years later, wanted to talk to them, I couldn't find them anywhere. I found them through Facebook eventually. But it was like 13 years after when I found them.
So you get back home to Leeds.
Yeah.
What's going through your head? Maybe you feel safe now. What's going through your head? Thinking, what?
Don't feel
What?
safe at all. I didn't feel safe from that moment on, ever. Like I do now, but forever, for years and years. So, like we told our housemates. Obviously, they believed us, and John was the fanatic. The only reason we used to go sky watching was because one of the guys that we shared a house with was a complete UFO fanatic, and he'd seen something, so he was hooked. You know what I mean? It gets you, doesn't it? But we never imagined we'd see anything like that, obviously. So we told them, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the dark, struggling, to feel safe. It just shattered everything in me. Like you don't know what life is anymore. You feel very vulnerable. I felt very vulnerable. I felt very, very small. It makes you very aware that you're just on this tiny rock in space, really. And these things, what are they? They can come and go, and the government like either know or don't know, and they can't do anything about it because that was there and that was absolutely massive. And how it was not seen by anyone, I have no idea. Like I can't believe that they can't see them. I find it hard to believe this. They don't know that they're there. I find that really hard to believe.
So your son, who was 6 at the time, does he have any recollection of that night or anything sort of
Yeah,
since
yeah,
then?
he remembers it. He doesn't remember it like obviously as clearly as I do. He remembers the lights. He remembers being scared. He remembers the hand. He remembers his terrors afterwards because it really messed him up. He was terrified. Like literally had all these mad things when he was trying to go to sleep where he felt like he was falling backwards through the bed and having all these weird noises in his head, like these wow, 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 that we all have described. All people who've had abductions, they call it the pull. And, I probably should have taken him to a doctor, but I was too scared. I was too paranoid. I thought I was going to lose him. If I started talking about UFOs, if he started talking about UFOs, I just didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. When you come into ufology and you realize all this stuff about it's just not true. It just doesn't happen. All the fear mongering, the men in black, the this, that, and the other. You believe it when you know nothing. You don't know what's going to happen. All you know is that was there. You saw it. Something in it knows about you. Whoever was controlling it now knows about you. And they, whatever it was and whoever it was that was in it, they were going away from us. And then they realised we were there, and then they came towards us. They were so many miles away, miles and miles away. They should not have even been able to see us, whoever they are. But they did. They came to us, and it's like now. So now, what does that mean, and what kind of interaction did we really have? There's so much about it that we don't know. It just changes everything.
Did you get any kind of feeling about why they were there, whether they were there for like a good thing or a bad thing, whether you felt, I know you said at the time it felt quite surreal that you guys were acting fairly rational or normal considering the situation, but did you get a sense, or do you have a sense of the purpose of that interaction?
Nah. If it was a military thing, it was purely cruel. They did that to us on purpose. And for what end? Because, there was no guarantee that anyone was ever going to say anything. We didn't all survive our own minds and our, habits that we formed in life. John's no longer with us, Um, it really deeply impacted us all, gave us all PTSD, and left us feeling completely hollow and shredded and vulnerable and small and exposed and, unsafe. So I can't see how any of it was good. And um if an alien was going to interact with a family on a mountain and it was a friendly interaction, it wouldn't have played out like that. There would have been something else that would have happened, that we would have maybe had some kind of say in the matter or whatever. If it was benevolent, they might have gone realizing we were terrified. They would have tried to, form some connection with us. I do know of a family who were in Ingleton, and they came upon this light and it enveloped them. They were in it. They felt loved. They felt safe. They felt all this stuff. And, and then when it was over, they were still devastated because they knew that they'd never feel like that again, and that it was the most special and beautiful experience of their life. And the grandmother, she was just so depressed after that. But whatever it was that interacted with them, made them feel safe. So no, I don't think it can't have been good. It can't have been for anything that would be beneficial to us. And I don't know what whoever would have gained from doing that to us if there were people. I just don't understand why people. Well, I mean, I know that happens. I know that they play UFOs, but that's usually to the military, not to civilians on a mountain. I can't. No matter how I think about it, of what they could be doing, what would be the purpose, there isn't one that is a good reason.
I know that from what I've read, that you've had quite a lot of negative feedback from, I think, mainly on the internet.
Yeah, but not really about this. And if anyone said that they don't believe in us, they said it to my face. Apart from one person at a conference, and I was like, "But that's fine." You know what I mean? It is a lot. It's a lot to ask. If people don't believe me, I don't blame them. It's a lot. Now Steve's come forward and Danny's coming forward. You can believe it or not believe it, but I haven't had a lot of grief over this. I've had a lot of grief over other stuff. And I guess that some people won't believe me, and some people, they won't say things like that to my face. But it's fine. It's fine. Honestly, I know what happened. I know I lived it. I've got other people who were there. I've got over the need that I had initially for people to believe me, because I know it happened. So, and I know that it's a lot to ask because it was just ridiculous.
You had any? I know you said you've had quite a few experiences before. Have there been any experiences or sightings? Obviously not on this scale, but any sightings that you had after this experience, and did you think that they're coming back for me when you were seeing these?
I was obsessed with staring at the sky at night, but just through the window of my house, because I was just kind of like frozen in the spot, on guard. So I didn't really see anything then. Years later, I saw some lights with some friends when we were at a festival, zooming past us, and they seemed to explode and vanish in a flash of light, but we were like, what the hell? Don't really know what that was. Then in 2012, I got some photographs of a sphere that was like in front of, just over Leeds, basically. And a bit like Stephen, he said he got the urge to go outside to look. I got the urge to take some photographs out of my window. I was on the fourth floor I had like a 4-story end terrace house, and it was just massive, and I had the entire upstairs. So I was doing stuff in the bedroom and, I was, like cleaning up or whatever. And I've got this urge to take some photographs, and I was kind of trying to ignore it and get done what I wanted to do. But then I gave in and I took some photographs, and there was a sphere with a little black thing. I wrote a blog and put them on a blog. Nobody was interested at all. And then with another woman and this guy who lived down the road who were not anything to do with ufology, seeing another thing moving around. It was moving like this, and then it went in the cloud. We all watched it go in the cloud. What else? It's hard to think off the top of my head. I seen one with Larry Warren, actually, when we were in the house, but I think it was a military thing. It was just a bank of 4 white lights with 4 red lights, red light underneath it. It was totally silent. It went right over the top of us at like rooftop height, and we only saw it when it went over the neighbour's garden, and we just looked at each other like, what the hell was that? Still can't believe it. Seen a little white light that went one way, and I thought it was a satellite, and then it came the other way, and I thought, that's not a satellite. It's just random little things. It's nothing massive until February, right? And I'm going back to Wales. I've got plans. We've got the talk to do. Me and Steve are going back to Wales together for the first time ever. We're going to do some filming there, take some photographs. I'm going to film him talking because everybody's heard me going on about it for years. So it's like his version of events. And I'm taking my son into town to get him some trainers. And we'll get on the bus, and it's kind of late in the day, but we're just having to get trainers. I was sat on the bus at this junction when it's quite busy, so you sat there for a couple of minutes, and I was sat chatting away, and I'm looking out the window, seeing a little white contrail. Sometimes they pop out of the sky really bright, depending on where the sun is and what have you. So it just looked like a little tiny contrail off in the distance. So then I looked at him and I was saying whatever, and then I looked out the window again, and I thought it had got bigger, but again, it got closer, but I wasn't looking at it. I just noticed this in all the other cloud stuff going on. Then I looked back at the shops, and it was there. It was right above the shops. It wasn't over there anymore, and it had gone from being like that, up on an angle, pointing upwards, to kind of starting to point downwards, and it was like this grey mist, oblong mist, but it had 3 brilliant white lights in it. It was so bright. I've never seen anything so bright in my life. And I said to my son, "What's that?" And he looked down at the street to see, because he thought I'm pointing at something going on the road. And I went, "No, there." And then it just went, poof, and it was gone. It was like it just vanished behind the chimney of the shop, and then it went off behind the shop. So we were sat there. I couldn't move, couldn't get off the bus, couldn't do anything. Sat at this junction. When we got up past the road, there was all of this space. If we'd have been further up the road, I would have been able to see maybe it for like another nanosecond, because it was that quick. Then, so I was going to put it on Facebook. I took a photograph of where I saw it, tried to do a reconstruction. No chance, because never seen anything that bright. Robert Moore, who's part of ASAP, he sent me a newspaper article of this woman who on the same day somewhere down south, I think she was down south. Anyway, she's seen a diamond-shaped object that was the brightest light that she'd ever seen in her life, and it was on the same day. Now, I didn't see a diamond shape. It was like if it was like side on, I don't know what shape it might have been. All I saw was one edge of it, and it had these 3 very, very bright lights on it. And she saw something that was super bright. Her comment of it was mine as well. I can't believe how bright the lights were. And it was on the same day. So I don't know, maybe. But that was February. So I was freaking out. I was like, oh no, it's February. Did they know? Did they know I'm going back? Is this a coincidence? Did I really see it? It's like I've gone over it in my mind. It was like, was it a reflection? It was like, no, because it disappeared behind the buildings. It didn't go over the top of them like it would if it was a reflection on the glass. I've picked it apart. So February, and I was like, oh God, was it a performance for me? Was it just some sort of, I don't know if I believe in coincidence, but honest to God, I don't know. I really don't know. That it makes me feel crazy. No, it makes me feel weird, like are they in my head? And I'll tell you one of the reasons that I think like that is because when I was in Bridlington, me and my friend, we saw this white light come from right to left to be above her house, and it was just this tiny pinprick of white light during the day, and I said, Emma, what's that? And it just vanished over the top of her house. And she went, oh. So that night, I've got her binoculars. She's gone to bed, and I'm outside, and I'm looking at the sky, and I think I see this light moving. So I pick this star on my right as a point of reference to keep steady myself, so I know where I'm looking and know what's moving. I've got myself flat up against the wall, so I've got my feet apart, so I'm not trying not to sway, and I'm trying to be as steady as possible to see if this is a light moving. And it moves off, and it moves right across my vision till it's an inch away from my point of reference, and the point of reference flew off with it. Now, you tell me how that's possible, and you tell me how I'm not to feel like some sort of mad woman after that. Like, how did that, how, out of all those points of light, why did I pick that one? Did they make me pick that one? Am I, are they in my head? Are they controlling my eyeballs? Like, all these crazy thoughts go through your head because you just can't explain it. And it's like, well, I must be crazy. I must be just a mad woman then. And I wish I imagined these things. And I have had loads of therapies. I've gone to every doctor. No one will have it that I'm mental. There's no medication for me that'll make it go away. But it doesn't make you feel crazy when you see stuff like that because it's unexplainable. All of it. How?
So when you got back in touch with Steve and the others,
Yeah.
that they sort of have a similar response in the years after that you had.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And they've seen other stuff as well. Both of them. So
Have they sort of seen similar stuff that you've been seeing, like these bright lights, the small specks of light? Is it similar type things?
Steve saw another UFO thing out in Spain, and Donny's had some more kind of weird experiences, like I have, like paranormal stuff, a lot of paranormal stuff.
That was going to be my next question, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, like I've always had that though from being a little kid, like always had the paranormal stuff. Like just thought it was normal. Like we used to joke about it in the house, you know what I mean? It was just part of how things were. And I never really thought about what it might be or mean or what was moving things or I would suddenly freeze in mid-play and realise something's not right. My whole body's screaming run all of a sudden for no reason. You look round, there's nothing there, but you can feel something, something's there. I've had a lot of that, and it's like I'm just coming from being involved in whatever I'm involved in, a feeling dragging me out of my whatever, doors slamming and things moving and disappearing and voices occasionally. Saw my grandparents. I've lived in like several haunted houses, or I thought, but I think it's me. I think I was the haunted. It wasn't necessarily the houses. It was me that attracting stuff. My son as well, probably. And then a couple of houses that I lived in had things in there. So it all kicked off royally because I've gone in there and I've got all this stuff going on and it just ramps it up. The energy of visitations from other things, because that was going on as well, especially centered around my children. It ramps the energy up. So you just have this paranormal stuff the whole time. And my kids, one day, before I moved to Liverpool, so this is like 2012, we were all stood in the kitchen one day, all just telling each other all of these mad things that happened. And I'd been invalidating them the whole time, trying to just like not make them scared or to like allay fears. But basically, they'd all been talking to each other about it and then ended up, just saying, no, Mum, this is happening. This has happened to us and we're seeing this. And my son's running around saying there's a dead boy behind the sofa and all this kind of stuff. And, it was just off. It's just like, it's just off the hook. It was made me like really emotionally wobbly and like nerve wracked. I can't compare myself to one of those fainting goats these days because I've reached saturation point with how much I can take. It's been calm. It's been very calm. Well, since I've been here, but I've done all this like spiritual cleansing and all these things. Like every single day I work on that because I just can't bear the thought of anything coming in and disrupting us again.
We've we've spoken to many people that have had UFO experiences, or that have started with paranormal experiences when they were little,
Yeah.
and they've had paranormal experiences throughout their life alongside the sort of UFO side of it. So it's that was where we were going to get to. So
I don't
from
know
my side,
anyone who doesn't have paranormal activity who has this in their life. I honestly don't know, and I haven't spoken to anyone who hasn't had other weird, anomalous, activity of whatever type, various types, all of it. Usually you meet people and they've got it all going on. It's like everything. It's like, why? We don't know. I honestly don't know what it is, but like why it's all going on. Like, it sounds ridiculous, and I know that I sound crazy. I hear myself and I think, oh my God, but it's true. It's all true. And there's stuff that I don't say because I'm like, I can't expect people to believe some of it. So I just don't even bother. I just think that what you said is enough.
When you went back up to Wales to do the bit of filming and taking the pictures with Steve,
Yeah.
what did it feel like when you went back to that location for the first time since it happened?
Well, I didn't know how I would feel, right? And I thought maybe I'd cry, maybe I'd get there and be mad and be all like, F you, aliens, you ruined my life. Because that's a part of it. And I do feel like doing that a lot, or I didn't know if I'd be like a fainting woman out of an Edwardian drama, or I didn't know how I was going to feel because I've had so many like intense emotions about this house, even though it wasn't the house, it was the thing that happened while we were at the house, because the house was blue in my mind, in my memory. It's like this looming thing, this Amityville type thing, so I don't know. I think I've drifted off there. Go on. What did you ask me again?
It was, how did you feel when you got?
When I got there, when we got up the hill, my heart was racing and my mouth was dry, and I was just like, trembling. My hands were shaking. And when we saw it, I was like, oh my God, oh. And we drove up it at the back of it, and seeing it was just like, oh God, that's where it all happened. It was absolutely mad. But I felt fine. I felt okay. And then when we were at the back of the house and the people who owned it came out and they let us go in, I was like, oh, it's like stepping through some sort of threshold going through that gate. But then it was just normal. And then I was in the house and it was normal. And I was like, this just feels so normal. This is not what I was expecting. I thought I would be like, I was like, so much had changed, so I couldn't see the path or anything. So maybe if I'd have seen the path, maybe I would have had a bit more of a reaction, but half of it was gone. So there was just the bit, and it was just like, wow, I stood here and it was there. But because there were people there and we were all talking, I didn't really get the opportunity to just stand there and a minute and absorb or feel or anything. It was just all chatter. And then we were out and gone again, I would have liked to have gone and stood there a minute, but maybe I didn't for a good reason. Because, you start pulling all kinds of things up, maybe it's best left as it is. And I felt really grateful and glad that we'd got to go on there and that we've spoken to these people. And it's just been a really lovely family home to them, and they've never had anything happen, or, and it looked so normal and nice. And I was like, I think that's done it. I think the Amityville looming blue house thing is, it's been cancelled out.
How did they react when you sort of explained? Because that's quite a big thing to go, actually, this is our house.
They took it all in the stride completely. And even said that their son was working for a particular newspaper writing about the Navy UFOs. And I was like, no, don't. Oh, another bloody coincidence. Oh, God, I can't stand it.
You don't believe in coincidences. There's things happen for a reason. Me and Ash can be testament to the
Oh,
odd things happening for reasons. So
it's mind blowing, though, isn't it? Like, I'll tell you. Shall I tell you one of my most mind blowing ones? And it
yeah, go on.
involves this. It involves this whole stuff, right? So one year, I'm having a meltdown, right? I can't take it anymore. Like the coincidences, everything, it just batters my head. And this weekend, I just lost it, and I couldn't stop crying, and I was in crisis. So I went to it's a crisis centre in Leeds. I forget what its name at the moment, but anyway, so I went there. I rang them up, said, I can't. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I really am. I've lost it. I'm panicking. I'm just in a bad way. So they said, come. They paid for me to get a taxi down there. So I got there, and you have this like 2-hour assessment with somebody in the chat to you. So I was telling her about everything. That poor woman, right, start to finish, everything. About the UFOs, about all the other stuff, about the coincidences. Like I really banged on about all these coincidences that had battered my head. And then I ended up going on at her for about 4 hours, right? I didn't even realise it. It felt like 10 minutes. And she was just brilliant, right? She was like, well, I don't think we'll tell everyone everything, but you definitely need some support. And we'll I'll go and have a word with my colleague and we'll figure out what to do. You go and have a cup of tea, right? So I'm in the kitchen. There's a couple of other people there. Do not want to engage. I have been sobbing my heart out, and I've just told this woman all this crazy shit, and like I've got my phone out, and I'm just going to disappear into Facebook and have my cup of tea and hide behind my hair, right? So I open up Facebook, see I've got a message. I look, it's from Danya, the girl who was with me when we were there. She's in Spain, in crisis. She's saying to me in this message everything that I've just said to this woman upstairs, and she's writing to me at the same time as I'm talking to this woman, right? And I went, oh my God. And the woman, she went, what? And I went, look. And I shoved my phone in her face, and she took the phone off me, and she's reading it, and she's looking up at me, and she's looking back at it, and she's reading it, she's looking up at me. Her face, I says, I told you, it's the coincidences that absolutely batter my head, right? And I just wrote back to Daniel saying, oh my God, I'm in a crisis centre right now. I've just said all this to this woman. I've got all the messages. I've got everything. I've got it all, and poof. So that was like one of the most mental coincidences. And then it was February, and we were both having a meltdown in February on a weekend. And at that point in time, I thought we'd gone to Wales in October. So I didn't know, I didn't make any connection to February or anything at that point, because I always thought we'd gone in the October. We had gone in the October, but that's not when it had happened. So I got it crisscrossed in my mind. Yeah, I don't know. We both went mental in February, and boom, on the same day, man. Like, I don't know. Yeah. And she'll back me up on that when she starts talking. She don't want her face out there. She doesn't want her last name out there. Ufology can't behave itself, so it loses out. It's 25 years since this happened, and Steve's only just decided that he can take it on, and he wants to. And Danya, because he is and I am, she's like, well, I will, but I don't want exposing to that.
Yeah, it's a shame because like there be so many people that are going through similar things that could maybe need the help or the validation that they can't get because they're scared of.
Yeah, and we lose out on all of the data and all of the stuff, and it's not the sightings that are dropping off, and it's not newspaper articles that stop people coming forward. It's the behaviour of the people in ufology, especially towards women. It's bad. You have to talk to the right people, or you're going to get, oh my God, you're going to get traumatised by the people.
Yeah.
You are.
It's a joke.
It's sad as well, because, I mean, all these amazing events that happen and all those people, they make it all sound so dull, droning, boring. Oh my God, it's suffocating. Like, these events are just like wild and amazing and like, oh, please. Awful.
Cool. So you mentioned your blog a couple of times
Yeah.
in the past hour. Where can people find the blog or more about you?
Well, my blog's just Sacha Christie, Infomaniac Housewife. And I haven't written on it for ages until recently. So there was some funny stuff. I'd like to take the mic. My blog about my UFO photos, that's a total mixed take as well because nobody's interested. And then when you show them, it's like a weather balloon full of swamp gas. Quantum entanglement gets thrown in there all the time, don't they? Even though nobody really kind of understands what it is. And you get all these crappy explanations. So I just chucked them all in a pile and was like, that's what it is. And then when I discovered one of my friends was a total liar and a UFO fraud and that he'd stolen other people's accounts in the Rendlesham Forest thing, and he was staying in my house and lying to my face, and I saw it all going on, and I like sussed him out. And so I sussed him out, I investigated him, and I put it all out there. So my blog ended up being all about that. And then, obviously, you've seen my blog about the Outer Limits conference and the inch-eye private eye that turned up.
I read that.
But we're the weirdos, yeah? He's doing that because we're the weirdos, yeah? So you come in disguise, like...
Could I just thank you for putting the YouTube link up? Because I watched that and I was like, what the fuck is this all about? Honestly, I've never seen anything so
He wrote like 30
insane
about me. He jumped on my back, right? And he literally, I say it all the time, he rode me like a cheap Blackpool donkey until he fell off, right? And he was garbage. Everything he wrote was just garbage. I was coming out with all this amazing analysis, and he was getting a red crayon and drawing on a photograph and going, duh, that's not him. Like, it was so awful, and he was just relentless, and he's just a harasser and a stalker. And what was he even hoping to achieve, or what was his goal? Was he like wanting to listen to what people were talking about in between? Did they think they were going to be talking about Mr. Unremarkable? Because we'd even forgotten that he existed. Do you know what I mean? He can't even post any of his stuff on Facebook anymore. It's all blocked because it's all garbage. So he's on bitch shoot. So he's on there now, and he turns up dressed like what?
It was the voice that got me. The voice he was going on. What the?
I didn't even listen to his voice. I didn't hear his voice.
I was like, I had reading your blog bit, and then
in the video. Sorry, yeah.
I was like, I've literally I've got to see this. And I was flicking through it because obviously it's fucking weird.
What a weapon, honestly.
And I was just like, I even said to Ash about it. I was just like, what?
What would you hope to achieve? I
couldn't. Yeah.
Oh, well done. Oh yeah. They're all so mature, aren't they? Like, oh yeah, we're the problem. We're just going to a conference, right? Like, just to talk about our stuff. And he feels the. Do you know why he does it though? Because he don't want to miss out, and he daren't come as himself because he knows that he's not going to get away with it. He's not going to get away with everything that he said and try to do to all of us, right? And he just wants to walk in and he just doesn't want to be pulled up on it. That's what it is. He doesn't want to be confronted. For being a lying little bitch and a harasser and a stalker. And he even got the hospital that sacked him in 2013 had to get a court order to keep him off the premises because he just would not leave them alone. Going in with his camera the whole time. Like, it's just what? Whoa. I mean, but I get really freaked out about that, you know?
It's kind of... That behaviour and the way that presents itself is almost like a caricature of how social media and the internet is in terms of people's
He's ended up being a parody of himself.
and
It literally has.
social media can get like that as well. It's and we find out with the paranormal pages. I look at all the paranormal stuff, and it's just so wild. It's like a wild west of
Isn't it?
there. So I'm hoping that all this US stuff that's coming out over the last few years
It's gonna
might try and get some kind of
get it off the
normality.
loony table, get it off the topic off the loony table. It's not going to be off the loony table with people like that, is it?
No. But that it is the extreme of keyboard warrior. That's just and
ufology thinks that is about ufology, but it's not. It's about UFOs, and they don't owe anybody shit. Do you know what I mean? And they're all so entitled and acting like we're all owed an explanation because we've done all this stuff. We've done all this stuff. Why ain't anything figured out yet? Why is it such a mess of idiots? Oh, because everybody's more bothered about keeping their mouth shut and maintaining their career and their status because they know that ufology is a complete savage and that just one wrong way and they just turn and swarm and all these free thinkers swarming, believing gossip, savaging people that they don't even know. You know, they're just absolutely full of it. They think that they're right. They think they're doing something good, that they're doing something insidious. I even had women, like when I was this, who gave her permission to talk? I did. Like, who could, what? You're a woman saying who gave that woman permission to speak? Get a grip, right? The misogyny in ufology, it's so thick in the women as well. I've just written a blog about this today because somebody I know got attacked for reading books in a G-string and a bra. She's fully clothed and everything. Like, these sexualized women. Oh my God, they're just weird. The whole scene is just dangerous.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a wonder that anyone has ever told any story, and not one person has come forward and told what's happened to them and not got trolled. Every single person gets trolled.
Yeah.
And some of them get really smashed about. I got really smashed about. I'm a stubborn bitch. You know, I'm not going anywhere. I'm having no chance. No chance.
Good to hear. Good to hear. On that note, thank you, Sacha, for taking the time.
Wow, that went fast.
Yeah, it's been a
wild ride.
Yes.
I only get to run. Thanks for that.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's important as well.
So stuff doesn't get mentioned. He's like, sweep it under the cat. No, I can't talk about that. So nice one.
Yeah,
definitely.
Thanks for having me on anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I will catch up soon.
Pursuit of the Paranormal with Ash and Greg.